Hey everyone, welcome back to Why Me, Why Not Me, where I sit down with women who inspire me in ways I can't even fully explain. Today's guest, she's someone I clicked with in literally the first 5 minutes of meeting her. I met Mariam on a trip to Thailand. Shout out to my best friend Danya for the invite that led to a beautiful friendship. You know those people you just instantly connect with? That was her. And once I got to know her story, I knew I had to share it with you. Mariam grew up in South Africa, studied to become a doctor there, did her residency, and then life had a new plan. She met Varun, her husband. From South Africa to Australia to finally settling in Dubai, Mariam has built an incredible life. She's a well-known GP, a loving wife, and now a mother to a beautiful baby girl, Zaira. In this episode, we're going to talk about all of it. Her journey as a woman, a professional, a wife, and now a mother. The joys, the surprises, the challenges, and the unexpected shifts life throws at us. Let's dive in. Hi, Mariam.
Hi, Anu. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I will say I'm very excited, very nervous, but you pushed me to do something a little bit outside my comfort zone, so I'm very excited about it.
I know. Honestly, I remember trying my best to convince you to do this conversation.
I fought it.
I know. I remember it was Danny and me trying to pitch you. Come on, Mariam, you have a lot to say. Come on, we need to hear your story. And finally, we're here, and I'm so happy and so excited that you finally agreed. And I can't wait for people to hear your story because it's quite exciting. So let's get started. So let's go a little back, like way back, and how life was for little Mariam, like before your residency and before wanting to become a doctor. Was being a doctor always your plan, or did you have something else that you wanted to do?
So little Mariam grew up in a little country town in South Africa. Till today, I get made fun of for the name. It was called Kokstad. Right.
Okay.
So till today, people are like, from where again? I'm like, yes, you heard it right, Kokstad.
Okay.
Very, very simple life. You know, we had like one, I wouldn't even call it a shopping mall, a shopping complex with a couple of shops, one post office, I think 2 banks, you know.
Wow, okay.
Very, very small town. Very simple life. But it's in that simple life that I think I found my love for reading and books, which is, I feel, the sort of basis of how my life has gone after that, you know? So I think one of my first core memories is my dad taking me, I don't even know how old I was, probably 7 or 8 or maybe 6 or something, where my dad took me to our library, our one and only little town library.
Okay.
And he got me my first book. Like, he put me on the librarian's desk and he got me my first book, which is called The 3 Billy Goats Gruff. And till today, that's a vivid core memory I have, you know. And then from there, it sort of just took off, where I was a bookworm growing up. You know, my entire life was about books. I would get lost in like pages and pages of books, you know, to the extent where, you know, we used to have a rule at the library where each person gets a library card.
Okay.
And
I remember
you
that.
can get maybe 4 books per library card. So I used to take mine and my mom's and my dad's, and I used to go check out books with all of their library cards. And within a week, I would finish 12 books.
12
I would just read and read. Wow. You know, so many parents would be like, you know, stop playing and go and read something.
Yeah.
My parents were exactly the opposite. They were like, get your head out of that book and just go do something else normal, you know? So I think a lot of my love for reading and the fact, because medicine has a lot of reading, right? It's theory after theory after theory that we have to sort of learn and by heart. And that's probably where I got that from, because I just loved books. Funny enough, though, my story is a little bit opposite of, I don't know, I should say the typical Indian parents where, you know, or be a doctor, be a lawyer, be an engineer, things like that. I always knew that I wanted to be a doctor from the time I can remember. That's the only thing I wanted to do.
Okay.
My mom, my dad was very chill. He wanted me to do whatever I wanted to do.
Okay.
My mom, funny enough, because she knew my love for books and English literature and, you know, comprehension, all of that, she actually wanted me to be an English professor. You know, there was a point where she was like, I think being a doctor is just too much. Why don't you just try this? You're very strong in this field, try and do that. And I was like, what? No, I don't want to be an English professor.
Trying to imagine you as an English professor.
I can't imagine myself as an English professor. Okay. But I sort of stuck to my guns. I was like, nope, that's it. I want to do medicine. And I think, my parents changed their entire life plan. Thank God. God bless them for me, because they always wanted to leave South Africa when I finished school and go back and settle in India. And the whole plan all along was that I would leave with them. And from the age of 18, I would be in India, studying somewhere, maybe Bangalore, who knows where, and doing a course. But because it's so difficult to get into medicine in India without like paying a donation and things like that. Yeah, true. Because I wanted to do medicine so badly, they decided to stay on in South Africa. So who knows like what my life would have been like if I had made that move to India, and I would probably be a completely different person. Yeah, but absolutely. That was my little childhood me.
Okay. I know a little bit about your love for books, and I also know the genre that you listen to now. God, it's a bit scary, but let's get to that later on.
My husband would agree with you. Varun would very fully agree with you.
So you decided to become a doctor, and that too in South Africa. Yeah. So what was that like? Your residency, and of course, it's a very demanding profession. But I'm sure there were challenges and victories that you have actually gone through. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think I got the best possible start to my career as a doctor training in South Africa. Okay. In South Africa, because it's a third world country, we see a lot of chronic illnesses. We see, HIV, AIDS, and TBs, everything. And we also see a lot of violence-based medicine there, the gunshot wounds, the stabbings, and all of that. So from a very, very early age, or early on in my career, we were just sort of thrown into it because
prepared for the worst. Yeah,
prepare for the worst. And even I remember as my first year as being an intern, we were expected to know how to intubate patients and how to do, sort of CPR and how to do thoracotomies and all of that, because they needed that staff. We were so understaffed, and the amount of acute cases that we would see. So that was very challenging because you're sort of just thrown into it. Like you study for 6 years, there's a lot of theory behind it, but you're not sort of really doing the practical. And then one day, you finish med school, that you're in this protected little bubble, and then you just get put into this big bad world of medicine, and you're standing in the middle of this emergency department with, like chaos erupting around you. And there are feelings of, oh my goodness, what have I done? Like, am I going to be able to do this? You know, this is stuff that you see in the movies. Like, you don't, this is not
no one prepares
life.
You for this.
No one prepares you. No amount of theory prepares you for it. But then you get your first case done, you get your second case done. And I think till today, something that has stuck with me is very early on, one of the registrars, senior doctors that we work with at the time, that I was working with as a first year intern, he was very hard on us. But one of the things that he always taught us was, the motto was, you see one, you do one, you teach one. So, you see an intubation being done, the next intubation you do. Okay. And the next time you teach someone how to do an intubation. And that's probably something till today that I go by, like in practice and everything. So yes, there were challenges, no doubt. The hours were long. It was exhausting. There was no such thing as rest or post-call. You left when you left. That would sometimes, without an exaggeration, maybe be 18, 19 hours at the hospital before seeing a bed for the first time. But then you would get those cases where, a patient would come in literally on his deathbed, and you've just saved a life, and there's really nothing that can beat that feeling.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah. So that is probably the most rewarding part of being able to walk outside into the waiting room. And you get the cases where the outcome isn't as great. Of course, that will always stay with you. I think any doctor would have agreed that if you have had a patient that you've lost, that's probably something that will stay with you forever. But by far, what remains alive in your mind is those times that you're able to go out and tell the patient's family, you know what, he'll be okay, or she'll be okay.
And the relief on their face.
And the relief and the gratitude that you see on their faces. You know, this is somebody's son, this is somebody's mother, father, you know. So the one thing I learned very early on is don't take that for granted. You are literally, you know, saving someone's mom or dad or brother, no matter how small or big the case may be, you know. So that's probably something that is, till today, I try not to get jaded with medicine. You know, anytime I see a patient, I always try to think, you know, you could be at your wit's end.
Yeah.
You've had a long day, you've had a busy day, and you're just like, oh, I just want to see this last patient and just get home, you know?
Yeah.
But till today, when I see a patient, it sticks with me to say, this could be my dad. You know, do I want that doctor to rush through this consultation with my dad? No, I want him to get the best possible care. And that's something that I think I'll probably always carry forward with me.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's sometimes puts things in perspective when you think of wow, that's very nice. Okay, so then after that, life had different plans for you.
Yeah.
You met Varun.
Yes.
And Varun was staying in Australia at that time.
Yeah.
You moved to Australia, a different continent.
Yeah.
A place that you are not used to, from South Africa to Australia. Do you want to talk about the, you know, meeting Varun, your move to Australia, what that life was like, and professionally and personally, it was a change for you. So tell me a little bit about that.
So Varun and I, technically, we were arranged, okay, but the only part about the arranged was that we were introduced to each other. You know, like I remember his mom called me first. I was out with my friends, and I think I didn't even know it was his mom, so I canceled the call, and then she called me again, and I was like, hello, who is this? She was like, yeah, you know, I wanted to call you first. You know, my son, he's in Australia, his name is Varun, and all of that. And, you know, at the time I was ready to settle down, and I was open to having an arranged marriage. I wasn't completely closed off to that idea at all.
Okay.
But I was very skeptical about it because I'd had a couple of proposals, as we call it.
And sometimes it either makes you feel like, I mean, this is not for me. I need to just find my own. Or,
you know, you're like, there's no way that this arranged marriage thing will ever work for me. So I think I was sort of on that buzz by the time I had met Varun.
Okay.
And I will never forget, the first time he had called me was, I had just done a night shift. I had finished a night shift, and it was probably 11 o'clock in the morning. Like, sorry, by some chance I'd managed to get home at like 11. And he called me on the phone, and he was like, hi, you know, my name is Varun. You know, I think you spoke to my mom, and, you know, all of that. So I was like, hi, how are you? And he had actually asked me to come on to Skype.
Okay.
And I was post-call, not a stitch of makeup on. I was tired, you know, I hadn't slept all night. And I lied, and I was like, I don't have a laptop. I remember he was like, how do you not have a laptop? I'm like, I don't know, I don't have a laptop. We live in South Africa. I had a laptop. And he was so convincing. You know how convincing Varun can be, you know? So he was so convincing. Now I couldn't say, I have a laptop, let me just go open that, because I lied. So I had to like pretend, okay, I'll go find my friend's laptop. And, you know, that time I got ready really quickly. You know, we started talking on Skype. And he popped up on Skype. I opened my Skype. I got so nervous, I just closed the laptop.
I remember this. I remember the story. Okay, go ahead.
I just closed the laptop, and he called me. He was like, hello. And I was like, I don't know what happened. I think the connectivity went. I was so nervous. So then gathered myself again, opened up the laptop, and we started talking. This was probably around, I don't know, 12:30 or so that we had started talking. I know the first time we cut that call was, I think, the next morning. This is 12 p.m. we started talking. The next morning at 8 or 9 a.m. was the first time.
No way.
We spoke non-stop.
Oh.
Like the entire rest of the day and the entire night, we spoke non-stop. And I think we both knew at that time.
Of course.
Yeah. I mean, he definitely says he knew before me because I was still like, okay, let's see sort of thing. I knew that I think I have met the person for me. He apparently, like within 2 hours of speaking to me, has just said, just hold on for me, just 1 second. And he had called his dad and said, I found the person sort of thing that I want to be with.
Oh.
So that was, and then it was just game over from there. Like we would chat every day. I think we had sort of, it was an online relationship pretty much for a year. And then he had come down to South Africa, unbeknownst to me, like planned this entire proposal. Like he got a hold of my friends' numbers.
Yeah.
Planned everything with my best friends, like an entire trip, because I was living in Johannesburg at that time, and like flew all of us out to Cape Town. And I had no idea. I just thought this was a visit. I had no idea he was going to propose.
It's so like Varun to go all out for people he loves.
All hands on deck.
I swear, yeah.
And that's what he's like. When he's
always
in,
like that.
he is 100% in, So had this fairy tale proposal. And then we got married, that same year, December of that year, we got married in India. I tried to convince him to move to South Africa.
Okay.
But honestly, the logical step was for us to move to Australia, because at that time, South Africa, the stability, the safety, all of that was an issue, So South Africa is and was and is, will always be home to me, like for me, that's my childhood. My family, my friends, my everything was there.
Your foundation was built there.
My foundation was there. And, South Africa holds such a cherished place in my heart, always. But eventually decided to make the move to Australia. I will say that was a difficult move for me. That was a very difficult move for me. Something about being there, don't get me wrong, it gave us incredible opportunities. The learning curve that I had, being able to go from a third world country where you're scrambling to just find a cannula and a needle to just, give a patient an IV, where because supplies are so low, to like go to this third world country and practice medicine with, the everything that you need to be a good doctor. It was an amazing thing. But I think there was a part of me that just missed the multiculturalism, because that's, my growth or my childhood, or, studying in South Africa, my friends group, the people that I knew, it was all people from walks of different life, and, Indian, white, colored, black, green, blue, straight, LGBTQ,
Okay.
And I felt that was missing in Australia. And perhaps it's where we were, we were in a smaller city. So perhaps it's where we were. But I always felt like something was missing, no matter how settled we were there. So I think, again, life takes you places for a reason,
true.
And it probably laid a foundation for us to eventually be able to get here to Dubai. With the experience that we have and all of that. So I'll always be grateful for that. But that wasn't the place for me.
Okay. Okay. So, of course, it's, for different people, it was different. And like you mentioned, you moved to Dubai, and Varun, his foundation was built in UAE, in Dubai. So, and you moved from South Africa to Australia, from Australia to Dubai. Again, a different continent, a different city that you're not used to. And this time you moved with Varun to a new place. Professionally and personally, how was that for you?
Dubai was the easiest move. The easiest move. Funny enough, before I had actually come here on a holiday, right? When we were in Australia, Varun used to always tell me, at some point, let's think about moving to Dubai. And I was like, what are you talking about? No. My ignorance at that time, I'll always say that, my ignorance at the time, I thought like Dubai was very sort of conservative and, I didn't know Dubai at the time. I've never been here, I've never experienced what it's like to live here. I don't know people from here. And he used to always tell me, no, it's an amazing place. No chance, sort of thing. And then when like our friends like Lakshmi and all moved from
Yeah.
Australia to Dubai. We came here on a visit. We were here for 10 days, I think.
Yeah.
I swear, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I came here with the mindset of, oh, I'm just coming here on holiday and then we're going back.
Yeah.
You know, on the flight back in 10 days, I made that decision with
We're
Varun
moving.
that we're moving. I know this was in March.
Okay.
Right? March of 2018. From having zero plans to move, we have a house there. We both have stable jobs there. We have our dog, Ryder, that was there. You know, his sister is there. My sister is there. Everything screams against us moving because we're settled there. People were like, what are you guys doing? What are you thinking about?
Uprooting literally everything.
Literally just uprooting. March, we came here on a holiday. November, we had everything packed, house packed, everything packed, and we were moving to Dubai. And it is the easiest decision that I have, or Varun and I have ever made. And touch wood, it has been by far, thus far, the best decision that we've made.
I agree with you. I wouldn't have met you otherwise.
True.
So
Very true.
I'm very, very happy. That was the most easiest decision you made because it was for my advantage as well.
Yeah. I mean, this is another thing. And I always say that, right? The quality of relationships, you know, there's a thing about Dubai where you either love it or you don't.
Yes.
You know, there's no middle ground.
There's no
with
middle
Dubai,
ground.
You know?
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you know, there's the soul, you know, that's missing. And I cannot for the life of me understand that because the relationships, like us, for example, but as exactly like that, the countless other relationships that I have made here, pure, true relationships. You know,
You connected so strongly.
and you know that these are not, you know, what do you say, those ride or die, you know, those good time friends.
Yes.
These are those friends.
Brunch friends.
Yeah, brunch friends. No, you know, the people that I've met here are lifers, as you call it.
Yeah.
You know, so I have no regrets. I think this was by far the best decision that we've made. Professionally as well. Easily, I think, by far, this was the best decision. Dubai has, now eternally be grateful, you know, for the opportunities that this place, believe me, I've paid my dues, you know, initially moving here. And, you know, the first job I had landed, I actually interviewed from there and came here. And it was a new sort of startup clinic and it was just ridiculously run. And, you know, it wasn't a good sort of setup. Okay. So I had paid my dues there. But then sort of moved on, you know, to
a
much better place. And touch wood, it has been, you know, a wonderful growth in Korea from there.
You know.
So in every aspect, whether it's personal or professional, I think Dubai has been amazing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to hear that. So you moved to Dubai.
Yeah.
So you started creating your little world with Varun, with friends and family around. At what point did you and Varun decide, okay, things are great. We are in a good place and let's grow our family. And you tell me a little bit about that as well as how that, you know, being a doctor and then being pregnant, carrying a little life. How was that entire experience like?
For the longest time, you know, Varun and I, 12 years married, we genuinely were just happy with it just being the two of us, you know, never wanted a baby. You know, it would cross our minds here and there and we were like, no, we're good. You know, let's just enjoy life a little bit longer. Very happy, you know. Then my best friend, Lakshmi, decided to go and have a baby and decided to have the cutest little munchkin that I would see every single weekend. And when I saw him and, you know, I would spend time with him every weekend and I would see him literally every weekend. And that just sort of made me feel like I wanted that on my own for myself, you know.
I completely understand you.
Like we were just saying a little while ago, you know, I will still today call her and, you know, Zai is screaming at the top of her lungs. And I will call her and I'll be like, I had a peaceful life. And it's because of you having Aru that I now have this baby.
Yes. I remember this. Even while you were pregnant, you blamed her for it.
I did. I was like, this is all because of you.
Yes.
But I think he is, honestly, I'll say he's probably the reason
I know.
where I wanted a little one of my own, because cuddling him every weekend was something that I would just so look forward to. And I was like,
it was like your own baby. He was literally like for all of us.
Literally, he was, so seeing him, grow up and the laughs and the smiles. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I want, So we made that decision to finally try to have a baby, and I fell pregnant. Funny enough, my friend and my manager who works with me, she fell pregnant 2 months before me.
Okay, yeah.
So we were like two pregnant women in the company waddling around everywhere,
Yeah.
Very, very demanding in terms of my job. Mainly because I think the first bit of it was fine. But when my manager, my medical director went on maternity leave, at 7 months pregnant, I had to take over that job.
Okay.
And that was probably one of my craziest and one of my proudest moments for me, because I was able to tell myself that, you know what, you were thrown into this position of doing nothing to do with that previously, going from that to being an acting medical director and having to run things and, run the clinic for the first time at 7 months pregnant. And
wow.
Till today, and I did it well. And I will, I don't toot my own horn about many things.
No,
I
you don't.
really don't. But I did it well. And I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the fact that at 7 months pregnant, I was thrown into this and I was able to do it and do it well. So anytime things get a little bit hard, I was like, Mariam, you were 7 months pregnant and you were able to do it.
Yeah.
You can do this. You've got this,
Yeah.
Sort of thing. So it was a demanding phase for me. It really was,
Yes.
It wasn't just about work as well. You remember the house, we had bought a house,
Yes.
and, Varun, I was useless in terms of the house at the time because I was so heavily pregnant.
Yeah, you were.
My ankles were 4 times the size, that they are now.
And you threw a Christmas party. Oh my God. You were
Christmas,
on your
I will.
feet
Yes,
the whole day. And I remember saying, Mariam, please sit down.
I know. For Christmas, I will sacrifice for
Yes,
Christmas, but
yeah,
nothing
that
else
is
but for
true,
Christmas. But like with Vern having to run around and sort things out for the house, because I remember he took me with him once to go tile shopping. And I think 2 hours into it, I was like, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm tired, I'm pregnant. He was like, just go home. Can you I will handle it.
Yes.
Sort of thing. I was like, yeah, you just handle it from here. I'll just lay on the couch.
Yeah.
So it was a very, very demanding pregnancy. And I had a difficult pregnancy as well. Really, I did. Sort of pretty much everything that can go wrong went wrong in my pregnancy.
I remember.
But it all worked out, and it all happened the way it should happen.
Okay. Yeah.
It happened the way it should happen, even with Zai coming early and the fact that, I didn't realize that we were going to have her. I got a call one day, nothing prepared. We're still living in our rental apartment. Varun is not even there. He was at our current now home, getting things done. We had thought we had another good 2-3 weeks of her coming.
Yeah.
Got a call from my OBGYN, said, listen, you need to come in. I called Varun. Still at this time, I wasn't 100% sure, but she was like, listen, I think we might have to deliver you today. And I was like, what? Sort of thing. It was based on a scan that they had seen, and they weren't happy for me to sort of progress longer. They wanted to do an emergency cesarean. And I just remember thinking, what? Like, nothing is ready. I don't even have an outfit of hers washed and kept, And I remember just calling Varun. I called Varun. I was like, I think they need me to deliver. He was somewhere. He literally did a U-turn and came home.
Yeah.
I was panicking. I called Lakshmi. I remember Lakshmi was like, oh my God, sort of thing,
Yeah.
And I had called Divya, who's my other friend, and I called my sister and mum. And I was crying and I was panicking and I was like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on, and all of that. Got to the hospital. My OBGYN was like, no, listen, let's deliver you now. It's not safe for you to carry on. Better out than in situations
Yeah,
like this.
of course.
Do you know, out of everything that happened in that sort of phase, the panic, the anxiety, the worry, everything, the one thing that I always think about and I'm always grateful for is, I know we walked into that hospital with my wallet, right? Because we didn't have time to do anything.
Nothing was according to the plan.
Nothing
right?
was according to the plan. We didn't know the cesarean section was going to be happening. We didn't, nothing. Walked in with my wallet. 3 days later, we needed 2 cars to take back the stuff that was brought to us. The village of people. Yeah. And this goes back to those sort of meaningful relationships that I've created or we have created here, with our loved ones. The village of people that we had, that literally with one phone call, baby clothes being washed, bought, people bringing in cribs, Pampers. I didn't have to know anything, there was just, the room was just full of anything and everything that I would need.
Was taken care of.
And not one thing was bought by me over and I.
Yeah.
Not one thing. And I think that is something that was probably one of the most beautiful things to have seen, at that time, where everyone came together for us.
Yeah.
And then because of that, I was fully able to say, we've brought our daughter into the world in a place where she's meant to be brought in, because she's surrounded by people that love her truly. They did it for us and they did it for her.
Yeah.
And it was probably the best feeling that I've had. It sort of overshadowed any of the other sort of negatives about the rush of it and, the anxiety and the stresses and everything that went with it. So it was honestly a beautiful, beautiful feeling. And I remember, going in and, the doctor sort of saying, okay, it's time now. They did the cut. And I remember the doctor holding her up, and there was like a split second where she didn't cry, just a split second where she didn't cry. And I remember looking at her and I'm thinking, like, why is she not crying? And it was I didn't have any emotion at that time. It's actually funny. People talk about this rush of emotion that comes in. I think it was just how frantic everything was before that. I didn't have time to digest the fact that
You're having the baby.
I'm having a baby, And I remember she held Zai up and I remember just looking at her, like lying there and looking at her. I'm like, why is she not crying? And it was so funny. My brain went very medical at that time. And I'm like, why is she not crying? She should be crying right now. She's looking a little bit blue, And I remember thinking all of this. Until then, no emotion. And then I remember she cried. Like, I heard that first cry. And I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, this is my baby.
A dam broke.
I swear, like, I'm a mother. I'm a mother. That's the biggest role I will ever probably play in my life.
Yeah.
And she's just become my world from there. Like, for Varun and I think our existence now revolves around her. Everything is about Zai now.
Yeah. Like, honestly, that's you prepare when you're pregnant, you prepare to make sure that there's everything ready for the baby.
Yeah.
How to keep her safe in you, and prepare for the baby when she arrives. The clothes, the food that's required, the formula, all of those things. You do your research and you bring them. Even if you're prepared, okay, when the baby comes in, where to lie them, everything, you're prepared for all of that. But nothing really prepares you for that feeling the moment you have the baby in your arms. The fact that you are a mom, that feeling it just never prepares you for that, right? Like
No.
that identity shift that happens in that
Yeah.
moment you're holding her.
Yeah.
It's I can't even, because I'm not a mom, I can't even imagine, but I still remember holding her in my arms and what I felt. So I can't even imagine
Yeah.
what it brought out in you.
Your entire perspective shifts. There is a before and there's an after. You know, there's this clear line, you know, and I think a lot of women will probably say that.
Okay.
You have this child that you're holding in your arms, and you are the reason that they will either thrive or not thrive. And that is a lot of pressure. You know, that's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of anxiety related to that. The identity shift, I want to say it happens naturally, but honestly, it's not something that happened very naturally for me. You know, I went from being me, someone's wife, you know, Varun's wife, to now a mum. And initially I struggled a lot with that identity shift. You know, I think you and I had this conversation just recently about how, you know, how difficult the postpartum period was for me, you know, and I feel like perhaps a lot of my experience in the postpartum period was clouded by what I was going through in terms of, because I did have postpartum depression, you know, I did have that. And, you know, you remember when we were initially talking, I was debating as to whether I wanted to talk about this or, you know, did I want to? Because for me, it is a personal thing. Because you guys, like, as my friends, you didn't even know that this was happening.
I had no idea.
Nobody did, really. Honestly, I think other than my sister and Varun, of course, nobody knew, you know, that I was going through this. And it was something I was wondering, should I talk about or not? And then I was thinking to myself, you know, I should talk about this because one, it's nothing that I'm ashamed of ever. It's a private thing, but it's nothing that I'm ashamed of. But I think it's important for people to realize, you know, like, for example, with me, I know the medicine behind it. I have seen patients, you know, as a doctor with postpartum depression. I know the science behind it, but nothing prepares you for when you are going through it, you know, nothing. And the funny thing is, I know, you know, if you had asked me before my pregnancy, or even during my pregnancy, as difficult as it was, I never thought I would get it. I am not the kind of character that I would have thought, you know, I've never had any issues or anything, you know, I'm just a sort of chilled, happy-go-lucky person, you know. So it took me like, you know, it hit me like a tidal wave, this sudden new feeling that I was having that I've never experienced before. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, we were in a phase where everyone was around me, you know, like, yes, there was a lot going on with the house and all of that, of course, you know, a lot of work and all of that. But regardless of that, you know, like, my parents were around, you know, everyone was around, you know, the house was full. But I will always maintain that it was such a lonely time, not because I was physically alone. You know, Varun was there. Yes, he was busy with the house. He had to be, you know, otherwise we would be living in an Airbnb for the longest time, you know, the newborn.
I remember that.
Yeah, that's what we did because it was such a crazy time because she came early. Our lease at our rental expired. We had to move into the Airbnb with a newborn. Having a newborn is stressful enough, you know. And then Varun had to like run around. He didn't get to spend time with his baby girl either. You know, he had to do what he had to do to get us into the new house. So he was so busy. There were days that he would literally be at the new house at 6, 7 in the morning. I would see him at 3 o'clock the next morning because he was at the house, you know, working with the workers
to get the house ready
for me and Zai to move into, you know. So yes, you know, all of that was there happening in the background. But then there was this feeling of just this sadness and anxiety and grief. And if you ask me what is it related to, I can't give you an answer. Nothing has gone wrong, you know, but
you just don't get why you're feeling the way you're feeling.
Why am I feeling this way? You know, I would I still remember, like, there were so many times that I would get into the shower and I would just cry and cry and cry. And I'd step out of the shower, I'd have to pull myself together because I'm a mom,
Yeah.
I have to pull myself together, But those that were closest to me, they could see there's this definite shift that happened in me, from who I was to all of a sudden overnight. The anger that I would be, I would get angry about the smallest things. I would just get very teary, very short fused, about the smallest things. And there is another side of this, though, that I do feel, everyone talks about the postpartum depression that women go through, But another thing that I feel that also was now in retrospect is very sad for me to see as well is the effect that it has on your partner, Like Varun has always been my fixer, if you will. For 12 years, there's not a problem of mine that he can't fix. And that's his love language for me, I have a problem, whether he has to do something or talk me out of it or whatever it is, he fixes it for me, And he couldn't fix this, no matter how much he tried. And I saw it took a toll on him as well. I think till today, he feels sad that I went through that and there was nothing he could do to, get me out of that. And that was something I had to do on my own. I did it, for me, I count myself very lucky because there's a lot of women that are not able to do that without, external help.
Yeah.
I sort of started getting back to baseline around probably 11 months or 12 months postpartum, by the times I turned around 1 year of age. But it's something that needs, it's something that needs to be spoken about.
No, absolutely.
It's something that needs to be spoken about. If I could do one thing differently, I would speak to you guys more about it as well. I wouldn't shut Varun out.
Yeah.
I wouldn't shut you guys out.
You would speak about it.
I would speak. Yeah. Because when I started speaking about it to like different people, very openly discussing it, I realized, gosh, there's so many women that have actually gone through the same thing.
Yeah.
And I wasn't going crazy, I wasn't being irrational with my thoughts. And there was so many things going through my head at that time. And I wish I had spoken about it more, I mean, in hindsight. But it's something that if I could change, I would, I think.
You would do that?
Yeah, I would. I would speak.
I agree. I honestly didn't see it happening. But I'm sure even if we sometimes you may not understand why it's happening or you may not be able to give a solution to that problem. But sometimes talking about it and having someone listen to you and say, or even someone saying, I get you. I've been through the same thing. Yeah. I completely get you. Yeah. That possibly could help, So I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Wow. Honestly, like if we've gone through a lot, your life is a very busy life.
Yeah.
Professionally and as a mom, as a wife. And if you have to say, what does Mariam do for herself to take a break? I mean, when you feel that life is getting really hectic, it could be just sitting 5 minutes outside away from everything, doing nothing.
Yeah.
It could be getting your nails painted, or it could be anything. Some people are just like combing out their hair, it just calms them down. But like, is there something that you do when life gets a little overwhelming?
Yeah. Actually, it's funny. I think there's two things that I've sort of developed a habit of doing, since Zai's been born.
Yeah.
One is I've refound my love of reading again.
Okay, that's nice.
Slowly, because I had lost it for the longest time. I used to love reading, like we mentioned earlier, but life gets busy and, work gets busy and you don't have time and your active social life and all of that. So I'd actually stopped
reading.
And now, I'd stopped for the longest time. And now I find solace sort of in, just a quiet moment when Zai is taking a nap or I have a bit of half an hour to myself, just open a book, and I initially was like, gosh, I don't know if I'll have time for this. But I find myself sort of reaching for that book again and again, and it's a book that I've actually read before. It's called 1,000 Splendid Suns, and it's one of my favorites. And I just thought, okay, let me just see if I'll read it again. And it just helps sort of take me away to another place, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I'm actually, like I said, refinding my love for again. And another thing actually that I love doing now is, especially like on my off days where I've got a day off in the week and Varun's not at home either, is I found that my love language for Zai is cooking.
I know this. Oh my God. Okay, go ahead.
It's cooking. And I love doing it. You know, Varun will always make fun of me and he'll be like, 12 years, you've probably got into the kitchen 3 times for me, you know, sort of thing. But every off day, you're like cooking like gourmet meals for her. You know? And I love it because that is my love language for her. You know, with her, I did baby-led weaning. I didn't do the traditional purees, you know. So it's been one of the most rewarding experiences for me. And I know I'm doing it for her, but really, I'm also doing it for me because it gives me joy to see her enjoy the food, become a foodie. I mean, of course, she'll have times where she'll take whatever I've cooked and throw it in my face, you know. That's fine.
It's part and parcel of
that's part and parcel of Zai. But it's one of the most rewarding things, like getting into the kitchen, cooking something for her. Like I'll research recipes for baby-led weaning, and you know, I'm trying to expose. I like sort of challenge myself. You know, when I started her on solids and started the baby-led weaning journey, I wanted to hit 100 different foods before she turned.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And you hit it, right?
I hit it. I hit 100
amazing.
different foods. And that everything from like seafood to tofu. I don't eat tofu. I hate tofu.
Yeah.
And I
When I grow up, I'm going to tell her this.
Yeah, I know. I hope she never sees this podcast because she will kill me.
Yeah.
But I feed it to her, you know, and it's something I'm so, so proud of, Anu, because like now, initially it was just a mess. You know, the whole concept is they feed themselves and the food is everywhere but in her mouth. You know, it's in her hair, it's in her ear, it's on the carpet. I swear I found food on the mirror, you know, which is like 3 meters away. And I was like, how did the food get here, you know?
Yeah.
So initially it was absolute chaos. But now, in all that chaos, I'm starting to see just recently, it's starting to, you know, like come to fruition because I can see her take the fork and I can see her sort of stab things. She doesn't get it. Then she'll like try again and then she'll put it into her mouth and then she'll pick something up with her hand and she'll eat it and she'll smile when she tastes something. And then it's the most rewarding thing that I have thus far experienced.
I know.
And I think
and I'm so proud of you and of Zai for that. This is something I wanted you to talk about because it is amazing. It is absolutely amazing to have that feeling. Honestly, that's and I've seen her as well, and the videos have sent me as well. Even though she makes a mess, the happiness that she has when she tries different food is just brilliant.
She's a foodie, and I wanted that. I wanted that for her.
Yes, you're a foodie, and the fact that she's got that from you is just brilliant.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, a lot of women might be going through the same struggles that you spoke about. Maybe they're going through it right now.
Yeah.
There could be someone out there who is pregnant or maybe going through postpartum, since you mentioned about it. What advice would you give them? If there's anything that you would want from your experience, you did mention, yes, talk about it. But if there's something that they go, suppose if someone's pregnant right now and don't know if postpartum is going to hit them or not, or don't know how their pregnancy is going, what advice would you give women?
You know, I think the one thing that I would say is it's okay to not be okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes as women, we put so much pressure on ourselves to show up, turn up, be the mom, be the wife, be the daughter, be the sister, the doctor, the whatever it is, you know. You can have moments where you have self-doubt, where you don't feel great about yourself. You feel that, gosh, you know, I didn't do anything today that I wanted to do. I had such a horrible, unproductive day, or, you know, I haven't achieved any. That's okay. You know, feeling that way, it doesn't make you defective. It doesn't make you a failure. It makes you human.
It makes you human.
It makes you human. It's okay. Be kind to yourself. I think that's one thing I have really, really learned. And we're all living this life for the first time, and we all learn from our own experiences and from our mistakes. Be easy on ourselves. We deserve that kindness from ourselves. And I think that's something that I have learned. And if I'm able to show one person that, from my experience, if I'm able to show one person that, I think I'd be a very, very happy person.
I'm sure there will be a lot of people out there that actually is going to be inspired by that. Also, Zaira is a girl. And when Zaira grows up, what is it that you would want her to take from your experience as her mom?
As a parent, we want everything for our children, right? We want them to be successful and hardworking and, all of that. But if I'm able to, I've actually thought about this before. If I'm able to teach Zai just one thing, and that's being accepting and kind of others, despite them being a completely different lifestyle to you, despite them maybe living a different set of values to you. It may not always gel with your ideologies and your values, but as long as they are not hurting or harming someone else, teaching her to accept them for who they are. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you always have to agree with them, but be kind in your disagreements. I think I would have won as a parent.
Okay.
I think so.
That's amazing. And I'm sure she's going to be like that. I'm sure she's going to grow up to be exactly like you and Varun. And that's an amazing mix with you. You and Varun are one of the most honest, heartwarming, kind, and yet the most fun people to be around. And I'm sure she's going to get both of those qualities. And I can see her being a kind and a very bold girl. I can see her grow to be that. Mariam, honestly, your story, knowing you do everything with so much heart, so much calm, and with so much dedication. And you, as a mom, as a doctor, and now as someone who's raising a daughter, you do it with so much love. And honestly, I hope there are women out there that listen to your story, and they feel like life does not have to be perfect. It can be messy, and you don't have to have it all together. Live every moment one day at a time, 1 second at a time. And I think, as like you said, be kind to ourselves. And I hope everyone out there listening to this, listening to your story, has been inspired by it and also can relate to you. And I just wanted to thank you for sharing your story and your journey with me. And I'm so excited for everyone to listen to this. And to everyone else, thank you for listening to Mariam's story. And I hope to see you in my next episode of Why Me, Why Not Me?